Hey, I'm going to show you how to make this long stitch book. It has rainbow pages and a folded foredge. And this is the pattern. I'm going to show you how to make a jig to help you punch holes in your paper and save you time on making measurements. So if you cut a strip of paper that's the same height as your pages, it can be about 1 inch or 1.5 inches wide and as long as your pages are. So this is my folio, and this is the same height when I put it on the tail and the head. And then to make a 5-hole pattern, you first fold it in half, and then fold it in half again on either side. And now I have 3 equal locations, center hole and 2 holes off to the side. But I can also figure out how to do 2 end holes, one at the tail and one at the head. And these are usually split between this distance. So if you take that last flap on the right here and you meet the fold that's closest to it, and you do the same on the other side. Now, without doing any measuring, you have the positions for 5 holes. If you're punching your holes in a cradle, you can fold the jig in half lengthwise and mark out the intersections where the folds meet. So here, here, center hole, 4th, and 5th hole. If you use a little cross mark, that'll help you identify the center for each one. You can see that right here. And you can also pre-punch the holes, just like this, making them visible on the outside of the jig. Now I can see through to the back where those holes are positioned. And that can be useful for putting in holes without a cradle. So let's do that next. So now that I can see where my holes are, I'm just gonna make some marks right here. And now I can see on my jig my hole punch marks from one side to the other. And okay, so you've got your long stitch cover and your signatures are folded and you're ready to punch your holes. So first of all, make sure that your folios are nicely folded and creased with a bone folder, and they're in the order that you want them to be when you sew them. Then jog them down to the folded foredge and up to the tail or head. Grab your jig that you made earlier and fold it in half and make sure that you've marked the holes on the outside with pencil so that's really visible. And then hold it down to your stack so it's going to line up with the tail and the head of your stack. Now, if this is a lot to handle at one time, you can do this in 2 steps. You can jog your stack and put a clip down on it so it's not gonna move around. And then after it's secured, you can take the jig and position it at the foredge of your stack, just like this. And you can secure it with a little bit of masking tape. Just make sure it's not the super sticky kind, right? You want to be able to get it off later. Okay, so it's there, it's not gonna budge now, and I can continue to secure my stack here. So I'm gonna go back now and add a binder clip here, and I can go ahead and binder clip over the jig as well. So now I can see if I've got everything lined up the way I want it. And it looks good. And if I want to, I can add 2 more clips to my stack just to make it really tight for the next step. So in between where I'm gonna mark the holes, I'm gonna add another binder clip here and one here. Just be careful, the binder clips can leave marks on your paper, so be gentle with them. If you want, you can always wrap a little extra paper under each clip. Okay, so now it's really nice and tight and secured. I can see where the holes are going to go, and I'm gonna now mark those out. So you wanna take a triangle. A nice sturdy metal triangle is really handy. And you're gonna use it to line up the stack. If it's hard to hold your stack while you're working, I would suggest getting some weights or a couple of books so that you can stand it up and it's not gonna topple while you work. You're gonna need a pencil, not too sharp a lead, something that's gonna spread the lead out. Kind of a soft pencil would work. And then I'm gonna position the triangle flush at the top of the stack, and holding it steady, I'm gonna drag pencil marks down the stack. Trying to go as straight as I can across the spine. And also I'm trying to make sure that I mark every single hole. And I'm gonna go down and keep doing that for each one, each signature. The triangle helps because I know that if it's straight here along the edge, that it's gonna be, I'm gonna have a better chance of getting a 90-degree angle here. Again, trying to mark every single page so I have a nice band across the top. You can see that there. Okay, we'll go one more. I'm gonna take this clip and slide it down so it's out of my way. I'm gonna do this one. We're gonna take a really close look at this when we're done to see if we got lines on every single edge. Move this one off down here. Oh, maybe I'll just pinch that. There we go. This is hole number 4. Right, and last one. Okay, so before I undo any of this, I'm going to check it and look at it really closely, and then we'll move on to the next one, which is how to punch the holes. Okay, I'm ready to punch the holes in my pages, so I'm going to take the binder clips off. And it's going to be really helpful to remember, as you take the stack apart, you have to keep it in exactly the same order. So you can't flip the pages. You need to keep the tops together, the bottoms together, because they've got to get back into order and align. So I'm going to take one at a time, open the spine so it's wide in folio form. And then right where I see my pencil marks, I'm going to do my utmost to punch right through there. I have an awl with a bigger handle here. If you prefer, you can use the finer paper punch and then just redo the holes with the larger awl. So you do need to be able to see where you're looking very closely and to check your work. If you're a little bit off every time, your holes will zigzag. So I'm going to go through and punch the rest of these now. After this one, again, keeping the top here. I'm going to unfold the next one, open it up, and reposition it that way. If you have a cradle, you can enlarge the holes after you've pushed the initial pinprick holes in by grabbing your larger awl and going straight down into the V of the cradle. And if you don't have a cradle handy, you just want to turn it to the side and take your awl at a 45-degree angle into those holes. So you have to make the holes wide enough for the needle or thread that you're intending to use. And these pinprick holes are meant to be like an initial guide. They're easy to see and you can go through the back, so it really helps to do that first round of hole punching. And then the second round is where you make, you know, bigger holes that are easier for your needle to go through. And go ahead and finish that. Once you've got these bigger holes punched, you want to jog your whole text block back together. And if anything got out of alignment, you can spend a little time shifting pages over just a hair to get those holes lined back up. When you feel like they're aligned, you want to put the binder clips back on. This time a little bit more towards the center. And then we're going to position those inside of the cover. And as we sew, we will keep the binder clips on, attaching both the cover and the signature block, the text block, so that everything stays in alignment as you work. You want to get your thread ready. I'm going to use this heavier weight thread so that it's a little bit easier to see in the video. No matter what thread you use, you want to make sure you get a needle that can accommodate the thread, and then a needle that you've, you know, anticipated putting through those holes. So this was my awl and my needle, and I know that my awl is going to make a big enough hole for that needle to slide through easily. So sewing is the next part. When you're ready to sew, pull a length out for every signature in the book. And if you're doing cover weight, you'll have 1 folio equals 1 signature. If you're doing 2 sheets of text weight nested together as a folio, that also counts as a signature. So I have 10 in this book, so I'm going to count this thread 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 1 more for the cover. So that's 11 altogether. And that's how much thread you're going to need. You can always pull an extra one for good luck. So as you want to, when you're ready to thread it, my advice is to cut the thread into a little bit of a point with your scissors. You can even wet it a bit and get the thread to hold together. And if it wants to pass easily through the eye of the needle, great. If not, you can take the thread and flatten the tip with your thumbnail, and then it has more of an angle to go through the eye. Once you pull it through about this much, and then you want to sew the thread back into itself. So that's what this looks like. So we're going to turn the thread, here it is, loosely thrown in. We're going to turn it back on itself, pierce the thread, and pull it through. When I pull it through, it's knotted to itself, but it doesn't make a big fat knot that's hard to pull through. It's nice and flat, so it's really easy to sew. Sometimes these come undone while you're sewing, but it's really easy to stop and put it back together. So for the next segment, we're going to start sewing the long stitch. Okay, so as I work, I want to keep my text block together. So I'm always going to keep a binder clip on it. I'm going to insert it into the cover, and I'm going to attach the very last signature to the back of the cover with the binder. So now it's attached to the cover, and I'm going to check and make sure that the cover goes a little bit past the interior pages. And now you can kind of see how the stitch is going to work through the cover, through the holes of the cover. That. So your holes are sitting in the center roughly of every one of these windows or openings as you look across the book. And if anything is misaligned, now is the time to align it before you start sewing. All right, so let's go in. We are on the bottom of the book, going into this first signature, the red one. And we're going to go through the last hole. Pull your thread all the way through. Okay, and leave a little tail here, and then wrap it around. So we're going like this, and back into that signature. There we go. Back in to the red. Okay. Okay, I'm through the first hole. I've wrapped around, but you can see it's kind of loose. So I need to tighten that up, pull it snug, make sure it's going across the cover, like the spine of the cover. And when I get it pulled tight, I'm gonna go inside and wrap this thread around itself so that it makes a knot. Before I pull that knot tight, I want to be really sure that this first link is tight. So I've got my knot ready to pull. I'm going to tighten right there. So if you tighten both sides at the same time, you only do 2 knots in the whole book. One at the beginning and one again at the end. So just make sure that you're keeping an eye on that tension, because if you start off with it being loose, it's really hard to tighten your book up along the way. Honestly, so that's on there. It's straight, it's tight. It's not too tight that it's bending the cover, but tight enough. And now we can keep going. So you see that we're on the outside, and the next place that we can go is back into this second hole. So the pattern that the stitch makes is called a long stitch because of the length of the visible stitches on the outside, but it's just a basic running stitch, in and out, in and out. What's nice, I think, about this is when you make the slits this size, you can see the holes from the outside into the next signature. So you should be able to just kind of stab the needle through and then find it on the inside and pull. When you pull your thread through, you just want to be very patient. It's probably going to get tangled up on your binder clips as you work, but and you might get a couple knots along the way. Just go slow and pull it through carefully so it doesn't knot up. And now we've got our second stitch visible on the outside. So we have done these 2 steps right here, and you can see them matching up on your diagram. Okay? Make sure that you pull them snug as you go. And of course, the next place we're going to go is into the center hole. And we're just going to keep doing our running stitch all the way down until we're ready to put the next signature on. I'm going to go out this middle hole here, pull through. Again, just take your time pulling the thread through. Okay, so I'm in the center hole on the outside. I'm going to jump back into the red signature. Again, pulling my thread through. Okay, I'm down at the end, and before I wrap here on the end, I'm going to check all my stitches. If I've got any that are loose, I'm going to pull them tight, just going one at a time, pulling them more snugly. Yep, that looks nice. And now I'm going to wrap around the tail back inside the book. So I'm going to go like this, and I'm kind of trying to keep the thread tight. So I'm going to do a little bit of looking here and see if I can do this without going back into the book. Maybe not. There we go. Just trying to get my finger out of there. Okay, I'm going to pull this through. So reattaching these. And now I'm going to be working on going on the inside of this second one. So here I am. I ended up on the outside. And so you're probably wondering, like, how the heck do you get into this orange signature? You might think that you jump down into the hole, but you have to actually wrap it. So if you look at the pattern, you'll see there's a double wrap right here. And you're going to wrap and go into the peach signature from the head of the book. So let me see if you can see this. So I'm going to go like this and into this hole, this first hole. So I'll see it. It'll look kind of like a double wrap here on the end when I get done. Okay, so I'm outside now, and you can see that double wrap, and I'm outside of that second signature, the peach one, and I'm going to go into the second hole. And from here on out, I'm going to make my way down and repeat everything that I just did. So when I get down to this one, I'll wrap on the peach signature, and then I'll go directly into this yellow one by wrapping again. So I'll repeat this doubling on this side. And the tail of the book is where you have these two single wraps in the pattern because you're tying off at each of those. So everything else should look like it has a kind of double wrap on it. Okay, when you get down to the end, same thing, you want to go back and pull everything nice and tight so it's flat along the spine. And then we're going to do our wrap inside, and then we come back out and we're going to wrap into the yellow. Okay, here I am going from the peach to the yellow. So I've already wrapped the peach, and I've reorganized my binders, and I'm going to pull this through and make the wrap, and then continue down the yellow with the long stitch, double wrap, and I'm going to go into the light green after this. Okay, I made it to the end of my yellow, and I'm going to, again, wrap around the head of the book, back into that first yellow hole. And when I come out, I will wrap again, and I'll go back. This time I'll start in the light green. Another tip is when you get to the end of the stitch on a signature, go back through and give every one of these a little tug, and they'll straighten up and you'll have better tension before you move into the wrap. Okay, I'm at the very end, last signature. Here we are, and we're gonna finish the book just like we started it. Okay, so I'm about to make my last wrap on this signature, the very last hole. And before I do, I'm gonna just tuck under this thread. So that's my previous stitch right there. You can see it, because I need to tie my knot. And it's gonna be a little bit easier if I pull it and knot it at the same time here. So I haven't wrapped it once. See that? It's my last one. But now I've also attached it to this hole, so I can end the book now by clipping the thread free and making a knot here. Of course, I want to make sure that my threads are all nice and tight before I do that. So go back through, pull on all the last couple of stitches, pull through one more time to make sure everything is taut. Okay, and then you're just gonna tie this string to itself. So I just made a circle around it, and if you want to, you can take your thread and re-thread it for this part if that's a little bit easier. Okay, we are finished. You can go along the spine and straighten up any threads that may have slipped off the shoulders, and you're good to go.